Tune in to the FinTech Files for exclusive interviews with FinTech executives and thought leaders. We will talk about how the industry will overcome the crisis that has marked the start of the decade, how it can be part of the solution, and how the financial world will evolve in the next decade. This is your host, George Alaferis from Arama.
This is the episode you should really pay attention to if you're serious about growing your audience and making your content work for your business. We're going to learn from one of the best specialists in content strategy, Tom Martin. Tom has been running the YouTube channels of some of the biggest media companies for shows gathering billions of views and millions of subscribers like Top Gear. The questions I'll be asking him are all about how do you apply the strategies he learned to business and to a niche like enterprise fintech in particular. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's really great to have you, and you're quite different from our usual guests who are typically fintech insiders. But I think your background, what you're doing on YouTube, the audience you've been building, could really be some really invaluable lessons from my audience. So can you please start by telling us a little bit what you do?
Yeah, so for the last, I'd say 8 years, I've basically been helping other people to do well on YouTube. So I haven't had like a host of my own YouTube channels. I'm not like a traditional quote unquote YouTuber. So I ran the YouTube channels for the BBC in London, then another major TV company. And for the last 2 years now, I've been an independent consultant and boutique agency helping brands, companies, creators, specializing in media companies to basically just do better on YouTube. So that goes all the way from like a 1 hour consulting call all the way through to like full channel management. So a whole range of niches. So there's not many niches that I've not worked in or worked on.
But let me ask about the particular niche that we're serving here, which is the behind the scenes of modern finance, the technology behind finance. So it's really a niche that is not very open to the public. Do you think there's still space, just to clarify it, for them to publish on YouTube? Does that make sense? Even if
there's a niche on YouTube for everyone. It might not be the biggest. That's obviously something to think about going in, is that if you've got expectations that you're going to get millions of subscribers and hundreds of thousands of views, that may not be possible because the topics that you're discussing are just not broad enough. But what I would say is, does that necessarily matter? So if you only need to find, one enterprise client a year to pay for your whole YouTube operation, then just getting a few hundred views a month could be, way more than a good return on investment.
Yes, absolutely. For what we're doing, it's absolutely not about the number of views or the subscribers. I know that's the typical metrics for YouTube. It's about reaching the right people.
Yeah.
And if you manage to reach just that one person in that company, then it could be a massive win. So this is the angle we're going for. And also, just to clear that out of the way, in terms of topics, do you see creators dealing with, sometimes, well, maybe the topics that we didn't think were so much fun at schools, the STEMs, the science, math, and stuff like that, but still thriving?
Yeah, so I've actually worked on. I actually launched a science channel that is just about to hit 1 million subscribers. It's been a few years since I touched it, but really, really popular. I think especially now with a lot of kids at home, anything educational is doing really well. And really, YouTube is an answers engine, and that's how I approach it for most of my clients. So if you can teach someone how to do something, how to solve a problem, give them the answer to their question, then you're going to find an audience for sure. So I don't necessarily agree that everything has to be, super engaging and bright and loud and funny. I actually got a friend who helped his dad to launch a YouTube channel, personal channel. And he talks about epoxy resin, which is not the most glamorous, but he basically teaches people how to make like shiny surfaces. I've got no idea what it is. But he just hit like 100,000 subscribers in a few months. making videos about epoxy resin. So yeah, there's, as I say, it's really where the riches are, is in those kind of small pockets of niche interest.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because YouTube is so global. So if you have a niche, then people typically will be there on YouTube, and therefore, if you solve this very specific, I like the idea that it's a solving. Did you say solving machine? Your audience is there, right? Then it's a matter of how to find them. And so, can we look first at the? We're going to try together to discuss, the elements that brands, in particular fintech brands, can bring to YouTube. Can you give us a big pictures of, some of the things you need to do in terms of the quality, maybe the quantity, in order to at least move the needle?
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, it's not a short-term overnight. No, we're going to upload 3 videos and then see what happens, because no one's going to watch. Generally, no one is going to watch. You need to have a plan where you can upload consistently. I'd say at least once a week. And you might not see any results for 6 months. You might not see much results for a couple of years, and you have to be prepared to wait unless you're willing to pay to get advertising, paid views, paid media, which is not something I'd really recommend. And so yeah, once a week minimum. Sweet spot would be probably twice a week.
Wow.
And also what you need to think about is, I think there's kind of a great thing about YouTube is it's a great equalizer. Anyone can upload a video from a phone and it can go viral and you can make money. But there's another side to that. That's okay for like the entertainment, viral videos kind of space. But if you're positioning yourself as a high-end fintech B2B solution, enterprise solution, you can't do that cheaply on the phone with bad audio, with like the head of operations who's never presented before, kind of like not looking at the camera. Everything that you post, whether that's a press release, whether that's a tweet, whether that's a blog post, same as video, it's a representation of your brand and your brand values. So even though, yes, you can be successful on YouTube with just a mobile phone, for your kind of audience, you really need to look the part, sound the part, really represent yourself as a priority kind of high-end production. And that doesn't mean you need to spend thousands on it, because you can do it now so cheaply. Hiring people like you, for example, George.
I look at myself as you say that. I check myself and my lockdown hair in my in my home, and I think, okay, lesson number 1 from Tom. I gotta brush up, but okay. Well,
yeah. Especially if you're trying to go for like the enterprise market.
Yes, sure.
The biggest mistake, and I've worked with Fortune 500 companies, big brands that are not necessarily fintech, but not a million steps removed. And honestly, they've been probably the worst channels that I've ever worked on, because there's no strategy, there's no coherence, there's no strategy, there's no reason. And what happens is it just becomes a dumping ground for everyone's promotional videos. So you've got someone from one arm, their marketing company wants to post a video, and it just becomes a repository, a library for adverts. And, everyone hates adverts. People skip adverts. People get up and go and make a cup of tea during the adverts. Why would anyone subscribe to and want to watch a consistent stream of someone's adverts? So you really need to think about delivering value in every piece of content that you make. And then so the kind of golden rule is almost like, if your brand was, any mention of your brand was removed entirely from the video, would it still provide value to the audience member? And if the answer is no, you really need to think about whether you should be posting that video or not.
All right. So that's I guess quite a challenge for many brands, because you have to post value, and then you have to have some kind of quantity or frequency if you really want to have an impact. So what about if someone that, you know, for smaller brands or for people who are not yet ready to commit that much time, even if it's not money, what are some things that people do? Would, for example, teaming up with a channel that covers your topic work, if you want to, you know, reach that, well, but benefit from someone who's posting frequently?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're describing pretty much is like influencer marketing. So you find someone in your space, and you basically pay to get in front of their audience, whether that is like a collaboration where you're actually in the videos with them, whether they're talking about your product, or whether they're talking about something related, but they're not talking about your product, and they simply say, and thank you to our friends at XXX Technologies
Yeah.
who are sponsors of this videos. You probably want to be more heavily integrated than just getting a mention of your name. But yeah, that is, you know, that can be for some brands, that can probably be a smarter way to spend that same budget.
Yes, yes.
It's just to get in front of somebody else's audience.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I know as well you're discussing for your podcast, the article you published about well, let's say a scientific approach to developing content, because you can gather a lot of information beforehand, right? And I guess that's also true, that's particularly true for YouTube, but I think that would be really interesting to hear a bit more about it. And I guess it can apply to content overall, but on YouTube, you've got a lot of data. So can you tell us a little bit about this methodology?
Yeah, absolutely. And it does work for any kind of content, whether it's podcasting, blogging, Google research. It's actually where I learned this, or kind of adapted it from, was learning what content to make on my blog before I even touched a YouTube channel. And basically it involves researching what people are already searching for. So there are third-party tools out there, whether you're trying to do research for Google or YouTube or whatever it is, where basically they have all of the data around what people are already searching for. So you can put in, you could just put in the word fintech, for example, into these tools, and it will tell you how many people are searching for that specific term, for example, on YouTube, how competitive it is to try and appear for that search term. And then there's kind of other metrics, but those are the key ones. And then what it will also do, it will also spit out that same data for lots of related keywords. So it might be something like fintech solutions, fintech marketplaces, fintech review, fintech sales. I'm just making this stuff up. And so what you're trying to do is to find opportunities where there are high terms and phrases that are searched for in high volumes, but are not getting a lot of competition. So the market is underserved. And what you can go and do is create content around those keywords, key phrases, but also optimize your metadata and your videos also to appeal to those keywords and key phrases. And what you're trying to do essentially is hijack that search traffic which already exists, rather than creating videos which you think people want to see and hoping for the best. Instead, you're making videos around topics that you absolutely know that people want to see, and you're giving it the best chance of being discovered because you're optimizing your videos for those key phrases and key terms.
I'm going to get back to the optimization part, but that already is quite a fascinating insight. So that means you can, if you've got an idea of, you know, you think, oh, this could be interesting for my audience, you can then, I guess it's lower the risk significantly by checking it, and also maybe discovering a way to phrase it. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're taking all of the guesswork out of it, because you might spend $1, $2, $10, $20,000 on a shoot and on the editing and on the people that are going to promote it for you, but you might actually make videos on something that nobody ever asked for in the first place. So
because you thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been chatting
or
about.
it's just something that you wanted to promote. You've got a new feature or something like that. But instead, what you want to do is find something that you know is that has a guaranteed audience already. So you're absolutely right. You're totally de-risking that, not experiment, but you're de-risking that time, effort, resource, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely great, and it's a lifesaver or money saver and time saver because content takes so much time to create, right? Whatever you do. So if you know better, first you've got an edge over other people because I don't think many people do that, and
Yeah, for
then
sure.
you can invest as well in your content much more securely. It's actually funny. That just reminds me a story of Netflix because they use a lot more data, and that's also the edge they have compared to, let's say, traditional media companies, and that's why they are apparently they were able to make a big bet on House of Cards. They bet, I don't know, 100 million, because they kind of knew, they had looked at the data, the pieces of the puzzle, and they thought, oh yeah, we can put our money behind that. So it's
Yeah, and that's the other thing, because the data will also show you the size of the market. So you might go in there thinking, right, we're going to get 50,000 views on every video. But if you do the research and you see that there's only, I don't know, 1,200 people a month searching for that term, at least you have realistic expectations going in of what kind of audience there is around what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then if you know that you're getting a significant part of those searches, it means especially for a small niche like the ones we're talking about, you're doing well and you're reaching probably the right people. Now that's great. That's a really interesting tip. The second part of what you said is about optimization. So can you tell us a little bit more about how it works, what you need to do, and how important this is?
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially if you're just starting out on YouTube. Kind of being keyword focused and optimization focused is really going to be your competitive advantage, because there's so much competition on YouTube, and every day it gets harder and harder to break through. I think the last public stat was something like 600 hours is uploaded every hour of the day, something ridiculous like that. And so again, it's really about what chance have I got of being discovered. If like YouTube is smart, so you'll notice if you upload a video to YouTube, it will generate an automated captions file. So it's doing a half decent job of quote unquote reading what you're saying in the video, but it's not perfect. You'll often see a lot of mistakes, and it's smart, but it's not quite there yet. So what you need to do is give YouTube a bit of a helping hand by telling it exactly what the video is about and what keywords this should be showing up for. And that's as simple as making sure that all of these keywords appear in the video's titles, in the description of the video, and the tags of the video. And especially with the title and the description, you need to remember that, yes, it does need to contain these keyword terms, but it can't just be like a spammy, just vomit of keywords onto a page. It has to be well written for humans, because ultimately it's humans that we're trying to please, as well as YouTube's algorithm.
Yeah, and you can trust YouTube and Google to be smart about it, and to know that's, I think, what, compared to SEO, which seems to me like something on the website, which seems always a very technical, quite complicated things. Although I guess there's common sense as well. YouTube, posting one video on YouTube, it's like its own little website, and I guess it's easier. You see everything that can be done, right? And it's not so much about the back end. So, would you say it's fairly easy to do proper YouTube search, not to call it SEO?
There are a lot of similarities between kind of Google SEO and YouTube SEO. I think you're definitely right. It's less technical. There are less places where you can do stuff. YouTube has very set places where you can put text and where you can influence the kind of SEO factors that are included. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but you do have to have some semblance of a strategy. Because if you think you can just throw up one video and put in the keywords of like fintech solution, credit card solution, payment gateway solutions, and think with one video it's just going to get all that search, it's not going to happen. It doesn't work that way, because YouTube have got so many different factors that they consider. One of which being have you made another 100 videos about this, not just one?
Sure. Yeah, and you think in terms of channel, not just as a one video. No,
Yeah.
so it seems like really what you're telling me about strategy. You plan, you know the data, then you build it, you build the content, and you make sure it's optimized as well. And just to emphasize again on this optimization, typically, because I remember one article you said about optimization being a multiplier of the impact, or maybe I don't quote you right.
Yeah.
Typically, what you see. Can we try to talk a bit about this impact? So it can be as simple as, let's talk about click-through rates. If we've got, let's say you've done some search, let's say it's appear on the search thing, it's still not a given that people will click on your video, right?
Yeah, so you've still got to have a good thumbnail, which is the little image that kind of represents the video, and a good title that people are going to click on, because you can work really hard to get in front of people's eyes, but if they don't click, then if people don't click, YouTube will stop suggesting it to people because they know that your competitors' videos get better clicks. And then once you get people to click, you've also got to be careful that people are not leaving early, because if YouTube see that they're sending people traffic to you, but you're not delivering what they need and keeping them on the video long enough, again, they'll start sending people to your competitors. But really, it kind of comes down to, so what I said, keeping people watching videos for longer is the most important thing to YouTube, because that means they can serve more data, collect more data and serve more ads. So really, you have to have a good content, but there's kind of no point in having great content if no one can discover it in the first place. And so you're absolutely correct in saying that optimization is a multiplier of quality. So if I've got a amazing video, let's say I've got Star Wars the movie, and for some reason I've been given the rights for Star Wars the movie to put on YouTube. But if I call it sw.mp4, just the file name, and I don't put a description in, and the thumbnail is just a random screenshot or just a black square, and there's no tags, even though that is arguably like one of the most sought after movies in the world, no one's ever going to discover it. But if I call it Star Wars full movie, Star Wars Saga Episode 1, and I have a beautiful description and a beautiful thumbnail that shows like the movie poster and tags that say Star Wars full movie, it's going to get discovered, and it's going to do great. So my kind of old saying was, an average video with great metadata will always outperform a great video with kind of poor metadata. So you really can't have one without the other, because that is another thing. Like if you've got really terrible videos, you can do all of the optimization in the world. But if people don't like it and they click off, so really they need to go hand in hand.
Sure. But I guess from a business perspective, when typically people have, well, at least some of the videos are all, well produced, decent quality, etc. It's an interesting perspective in terms of your effort and investment. How much time does it take to optimize it versus, I don't know, trying to promote it, or versus the cost of the content itself? I guess it's a very good trade-off.
Yeah, so for me, once I've done that upfront research around the keywords and I've got a system in place, generally, when I'm actually uploading a video, it's not going to take me more than, some channels I've got the system down to where it's going to take me 2 minutes. Some takes a bit more because I'm crafting more of a longer form description, but maximum like 20 minutes for somebody that knows what they're doing and can write a half decent copy. Thumbnail creation might take a little bit longer because you want that to be good. But yeah, it's absolutely worth it, because, like I say, you might invest 20,000 for a series of 5 videos, but if they go out with a poor title and no description and no tags, you might as well just set fire to that money, because no one's going to watch those videos for sure.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And also you compare, just, because people are short on time, if you compare it on the time spent on promoting it, sharing it on social media, etc. Again, you might spend 20 minutes on a post and it can have a one-off impact, or these 20 minutes you spent on optimizing it properly will probably have a much longer impact, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the real beauty of YouTube over any other platform, apart from maybe like a blog on Google, is the long tail effect. You know, you've got that video and it might not do great, like it might not hit your expectations early on, but that, you know, that could be seen by the right person 3 years later that get in touch, and that's, you know, $100,000 enterprise sale or whatever it might be, for something that wouldn't have got seen if you hadn't done that extra 25 minutes of optimization, for example.
Yeah, that's the longevity of the content is also something that's really worth considering, and it's very, very different, I guess, on YouTube than on social media. If sometimes we put them together, but it's a very different process.
Yeah, and trying to cross promote from social media really doesn't work, especially when you're talking about YouTube. Because if you're on Facebook and you post a link to YouTube, they're not going to share that because they don't want people leaving. Just like YouTube doesn't want people leaving, Facebook doesn't want people leaving, Twitter don't want people leaving. Whoever it is, they want to keep people on their own platforms. So yeah, if that's your kind of like get out of jail free card, oh, we've got a big Facebook page, we're gonna link to it from there, it's not going to get you the results that you want.
Yeah. Okay, so to sum it up, you need to do your research beforehand, have a scientific approach, create great content, create it with frequency, optimize it. And I guess if you cannot do that, in particular the frequency, the quantity, then you should collaborate with other people. Try to team up with someone who's doing it and collaborate with them. Okay, I mean, I guess I know that it goes to a lot more details, and you can build strategy which are so much more advanced, but I think that's a fantastic takeaway from our little chat.
I think as well, if you've got the money but you haven't got the time or the expertise, everything can be outsourced. You know, script writing, filming, animation, editing, publishing, promotion. Every step of the chain can be outsourced. So it doesn't have to be done in-house if that's the kind of if you're cash rich but time poor, then it can all be outsourced.
Yeah, but with a strategy behind it. Because,
yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Let's move on a little bit to conclude, because I know you're doing podcasts as well, just like I do, and so let's start first. You're the video expert, but now you're running a podcast. Why this shift, or why this combination, and how do you see them working together? I know I see a lot of YouTube creators who also have a podcast, so it's quite a common thing.
So for me, it comes back down to that research, in that yes, there are a lot of people searching on YouTube for stuff around YouTube, like how to get more views and subscribers. So there's the potential there, but the competition is very, very, very saturated, very big already. So there are some big incumbents in that market. And also, I also thought about my audience for my consulting business and my agency. My clients are not searching for how to get more subscribers on YouTube. Like, they're way past that. So the people that are getting all those views and doing those searches, it's all aimed at beginners. And my business doesn't cater for beginners. So for me, it was all about positioning and knowing where my audience were. So I did that research, and I decided that my audience weren't actually on YouTube, but they are on listening to podcasts, they are reading blogs, they are on LinkedIn, for example. And so we've got a very small listenership, but it's the right listenership. It's head of digital for like some big media companies, big brands. And so it was a conscious decision not to try and compete in a very competitive market, and instead, go to where our audience were. And they just happened not to be on YouTube, really. And that may be the case for some of your listeners. It may not. And that's why you have to do that research up front.
Yeah. And what's great as well, I mean, I listened to your podcast, and you can go into great details. I mean, what we're doing here is just a very quick overview, but in the podcast you can go in depth and really take the time to. So it's also a different experience, I guess. When you go into more advanced topics, then it's hard to discuss it if you need to discuss for a long time, it's hard to put it in a 1 minute snappy video on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure.
And therefore, so would you say that podcast is a big part of your what do you call lead generation, nurturing, education of the market?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got a second podcast due to launch in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, I definitely believe it as a medium. I know that I think podcast consumption has gone way down with everyone being at home, including for myself. You know, I used to listen to it going to the shops or commuting, driving, but where I'm at home, I'm not really doing that so much, and I'm actually watching a lot more YouTube instead. But I think once the kind of world starts to open again, obviously we're recording this at the time of kind of lockdown. Yeah, it's a really powerful medium. You know, there are podcasts that I've personally been listening to for 10 years. You know, it's crazy to think of that level of engagement that's been going on for so long. And there's something about a podcast, even though you can't see someone, it's a very deep engagement because they're like right in your ears and you kind of feel like you know the host. So for me, it works well. Certainly lower barrier to entry than YouTube, I'd say. But on the flip side of that, there's definitely a kind of know, like, and trust factor that you can get by appearing, you know, your face on video. You know, it's been scientifically proven that people connect with people, especially, you know, when they're looking straight down the lens of the camera. And so, yeah, obviously you give that up on a podcast. But yeah, that was kind of just a personal choice for my business at this time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've so far I'm a beginner in podcast, but so far it's been really good. And every doubt that I had about will people ever listen to a 30-minute technical conversation on this niche topic of not just fintech but B2B Fintech, and the answer has been yes, without trying hard to promote it and just organically. So it's been not a surprise because I also had research about it, but it's been a good first start, and it's always encouraging. And I know that's just a start. And maybe as we again try to find advice for brands here together. What would you say about launching your podcast? It seems like everybody's doing it, or almost everyone. Does that worry you, or?
Yeah, I definitely think it's busier and busier, same as on YouTube. But I'd do exactly the same thing. I'd go and find what people are searching for, what's underserved in the market. Listen to your competition. What can you do differently? What can you do better? Go and read their reviews. What are people saying they're doing wrong? And try and kind of take advantage of that. There are a lot more technical things in terms of like the perfect way to launch a podcast, like launching a certain amount of episodes at the same time and driving everyone there very early. But they're kind of bigger experts in the podcasting world than me that would probably give better advice on that.
Sure. But still, I think the strategy, having a strategy, doing some research rather than just going with enthusiasm and your own idea. I think that's a good one. And I feel as well that people are just like everyone has a website, right? It doesn't mean you shouldn't launch one or everybody makes videos. I feel like podcast, having the opportunity to listen as well as watch or read whatever the company or the people you want to follow, I think it's becoming a part of our normal consumption habit. So I'm personally, I've waited a long time because I thought, everybody's launching a podcast. But now I think maybe tomorrow everyone has one, and that's part of your, you have a website, of course you do. Well, maybe everybody will have a podcast or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's a famous saying, and it works for podcasts, YouTube channels, websites, whatever it is. Like, the best time to launch a YouTube channel was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The second best time to launch a channel is today. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty good one indeed. Okay, that was fantastic, Tom. Thank you so much. I always conclude with a few lighthearted questions just to finish off. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
What would you do if you were to choose a different career path?
Does it have to be realistic?
No.
I think my little dream when I was young was to be a professional football player. I never got anywhere near that. Also wanted to be a professional poker player at one point, and I'd probably be semi-professional when I retire. So yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
Oh, there you go. So you answered as well my second question, which is a talent, passion that most people don't know about, I guess.
Poker's one. I'd also say you can't see it on the podcast, but I've got a classic kung fu movie poster on the office behind me. So yeah, 1990s kung fu movies from Hong Kong. It's my passion for sure.
Oh wow! Okay, I'd love to discuss that another time, but because
that's a different podcast.
That's a very good podcast to launch. Maybe we do it together. Fantastic! And because we're still in lockdown, what's your favorite place to go on holidays?
Well, I actually had a holiday booked to Las Vegas, which had to be cancelled, which I'll hopefully go next year. So definitely Las Vegas, joint with Hong Kong as well. I dragged my wife to Hong Kong on our honeymoon, and unknowingly she visited the set of a lot of Hong Kong movies. She didn't realize she was visiting. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Oh, there you go. So next Las Vegas and Hong Kong with the family, because I know you got 2 children.
No, actually, I was taking my dad for his 65th birthday. He's never been to the States. So
all right.
It would have been a welcome break from the family.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully the wife is not listening to this.
Well, I hope you can make it soon. Hopefully, things seems to be going towards normal. That would be a great thing to do for you and your dad. So thank you very much. I'll put all the links about where we can find you, follow you. But it's been really a great pleasure talking to you and catching up. And I think we've learned a lot of fantastic insights that are applicable to even the small niche of enterprise, the small and technical niche of enterprise fintech. So that's been great.
All right. Thanks, George.
Thanks for listening, and thank you to our guests who make this possible. Subscribe to never miss an episode. As this is a new broadcast, if you could give us a 5-star review on iTunes and your favorite podcast player, that would be great. Let's work together to accelerate fintech towards the 2030s.